From the rugged shoreline cliffs of North America's most easterly point to the spectacular fjords of Gros Morne, Newfoundland and Labrador serves up inspiring scenery unrivaled anywhere. It is a place where there are more wildlife than people, more wilderness than roads, and a culture largely unchanged for hundreds of years, in part due to the island's isolation. Commonly referred to as the Rock, it's home to Canada's first English settlement, a place that takes you back in time, and a place where often it feels like time stands still. From St. John's, the oldest city in North America, to Little Paradise with a population of just 2, Newfoundland thrives in uniqueness, and where the people are its greatest asset. There are many ways to explore Newfoundland and Labrador, but none more intimate than when traveling by motorcycle and hiking through the many fishing villages and backcountry wilderness areas. So come join us as we explore the Rock on 2. That's 2 wheels and 2 feet. We will introduce you to the legendary George Street in downtown St. John's and take you on a 16-kilometer hike to the summit of Gros Morne Mountain. Let us guide you in and out of every bay around this island. So let's get this 2-wheel journey started. Welcome back to The Rock on 2, a 5-part miniseries documenting our motorcycle and hiking journey throughout Canada's most easterly province, Newfoundland and Labrador, this past summer. So far, we have guided you through the historic Avalon Peninsula, Trinity Bay and Bonavista Bay, as well as the picturesque Notre Dame Bay, Green Bay, and White Bay area. In this, episode 4, Wanda and I ride through the spectacular scenery of the west coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, and south to Burgio. We will take you through the Bay of Islands, as well as the Porta Port Peninsula. You will find that there are no 2 areas in this province alike, and each area offers a unique scenery and a varied history. So please, relax and enjoy the ride with us as we complete our motorcycle tour of this magnificent island that we affectionately call the Rock. Heading west on the Trans-Canada Highway en route to Stephenville, we have the rolling hills to the left and Burgeo Lake to the right. This region is known for its large lakes, rivers, great fishing and hunting, and of course, motorcycle riding. It is easy to understand why this area is so popular for the outdoor enthusiast, including camping and cottage goers. With miles of lakes to navigate, it is great for both fishing and boating, as well as snowmobiling during the winter months. Just south of Deer Lake, we enter what is arguably one of the most scenic 50 kilometers within the province. The road winds alongside the Humber River, nestled in the beautiful Humber Valley. The valley narrows at the western end of the lake where it flows into the lower Humber River. This area of the valley includes the local service district of Little Rapids, as well as the Humber Valley Golf Resort, adjacent to the Marble Mountain Ski Resort and the community of Steadybrook. The Humber Valley ends at Corner Brook, where the river flows into the Bay of Islands, appropriately named Humbermouth. We will see much more of the Corner Brook and Bay of Islands area in a couple of days' time, but after a short ride break here in Corner Brook, it's back on the motorcycles and back en route to Stephenville. The riding here on the western section of the island is great. The scenery is varied and the weather is always a few degrees warmer than the rest of the province in the summer months. This is a biker's paradise for sure. Stephenville was formerly known as Acadian Village between 1848 and 1870. The populace made a living from farming and fishing. The town's economy grew thanks in part to the United States Air Force placing a base here from 1941 to 1966. The base precipitated an economic boom of sorts on Newfoundland's southwest coast during the 1940s. With the massive investment from the government of the United States in the base, the Stephenville and St. George's Bay area began to flourish. The village of Stephenville grew from a hamlet of several hundred people with little or no infrastructure in 1941 into a modern town of over 5,000 by the mid-1950s. By the time the base closed in 1966, the town had more than doubled in size. The first thing on our agenda here in Stephenville is to find a place to stay for the night. Our first stop, the day's end, had no vacancies, but with a cell phone and a little help from Google, we located the Dreamcatcher's Lodge, who did indeed have rooms available for the night. The hotel is located at the end of Main Street, right in the heart of Stephenville. We check in, take the luggage up to the room, and set up all of our devices for recharging. We have to charge 2 GoPro video cameras, a Canon Digital Rebel XS, a laptop, and 2 helmet intercom systems every single day. And then we have to transfer and file the daily footage to a 3 terabyte external hard drive. This can often take 60 minutes at the end of each ride day. After we sort out our electronics, we stroll around Stephenville's Main Street in search of a place to eat. Then it's back to the room for a couple of cold ones and a good night's sleep before heading down the south coast to Burgio in the morning. Another sunny morning, another day of exploring from the 2 wheels of our motorcycles. And after our coffee and muffin at McDonald's, we are on the road again for day 6 of our tour of the Rock. The one thing that you must consider when motorcycling is your fuel range and the location of gas stations when riding off the main highways. Stephenville is nearly 200 kilometers from Burgio, and with no gas stations past the town of Stephenville Crossing, it is there that we decided to refuel. It was now 170 kilometers and within range for Wanda's motorcycle. But just in case, I have a siphon hose on the trip so I can transfer fuel to Wanda's bike if needed. The Vulcan 2000 has a 300 plus kilometer range with its 21 liter tank. We arrive at Route 480, the Burgio Highway, and settle in for 150 kilometers of wilderness riding. The first 35 kilometers of our ride wind through river valleys and dense evergreen forest that covers the long-range mountains.
I love it.
Where the highway meets a woods road, the pavement heads south and the landscape begins to change. The trees thin out and eventually fade away to reveal barrens strewn with uncounted boulders. It's a wild land dotted with blue ponds. Burgio is one of the largest towns on the south coast with a population of just over 1,600. The name was originally Portuguese Burgio, but evolved through the years. Settled by the Europeans in the 1700s, Burgio has grown into a major service and transportation center for the western half of the south coast. Arriving in Burgio shortly after noon, we were in awe of the surrounding scenery as we parked the motorcycles to check into the Burgio Haven, our bed and breakfast for the night. From the moment we entered the room, we fell in love with the place. The extra-large room overlooked a beautiful mature garden with the ocean inlet just beyond. It's a place that Wanda and I could see ourselves returning to time and time again. The sense of being at one with nature really comes to life here. No tour of an area is complete without a hike, and we decided to take a closer look at Burgio on foot. After a 6-kilometer walk, we get back on the motorcycles again and head for Sandbanks Provincial Park. This park was worth the 150-kilometer ride here from the Trans-Canada Highway, and whose beaches rival those of the Caribbean. Although it was a grey, foggy day, we enjoyed our stroll on the sandy beaches immensely. Day 7 has arrived, and it's time to return to Stephenville to complete our tour of the Porta Port Peninsula. Back on the motorcycles again and riding northwest along the Caribou Trail on this wonderful, warm, sunny day to the TCH Route 1. We check in once again to the Dreamcatcher Lodge and unload the bikes before heading around the beautiful Porta Port Peninsula. The most astonishing thing that Wanda and I have discovered on our tour of the Rock is the differences in landscape in the various regions of the province. Surprisingly, once again, the Porta Port Peninsula serves up a scenic ride like nothing else we've seen on this motorcycle tour. We ride through the narrow point of land connecting the Porta Port Peninsula to the rest of the island and take Route 460 for the loop around the 130-kilometer peninsula. During and after the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 and the Treaty of Paris in 1763, France retained the right to use the west coast of the island. This area became known as the French Shore, and the Porta Port Peninsula was at its very center. Scattered settlements continued in the area until 1904, when France relinquished its right of use to the French Shore. The Porta Port Peninsula represents the most varied ethnic and linguistic mix in the entire island of Newfoundland, including Mi'kmaq families and with the highest proportion of French-speaking settlements on the island of 15%. The beautiful grassy farmland follows the coast for much of the ride from Abraham's Cove, Jerry's Nose, and Ship Cove, and on through Lower Cove. At Sheaves Cove, a cascading waterfalls can be seen just a short distance from the highway. The community of Mainland is more than 200 years old, and from here you can see the Red Island. Red Island was named by Captain James Cook in 1767 when he noticed its reddish-colored cliffs. Red Island was used as a fishing station by the Basque in the 16th and 17th centuries, and then by the French fishermen from St. Pierre, Brittany, and the Acadian communities in Nova Scotia until early this century. Wanda and I are always looking for a nice place to take a ride break. We decided to stop in Lourdes for a chance to walk through their church gardens and grotto. We then just relaxed and laid out in the sun. The ride breaks are quick, and before long it's back on the bikes again and riding through the communities of Piccadilly and Agathuna. Nothing beats riding your motorcycle through areas that you've never ridden before. You never really know what you'll see or expect to find around the next bend in the road. We continue on back into Stephenville and return to the Dreamcatcher Lodge for the night. One ride day rolls into another, and it is now day 8 of our tour of the Rock. Today it is time to explore the Bay of Islands region. Corner Brook, the only city in this region of the province, is a place that I visited quite often as a child. Living in a small town on the northern peninsula with no sign of city life made a trip to Corner Brook pretty special to a kid. After we refuel the bikes, it's on to the community of Lark Harbour at the entrance of the Bay of Islands. From Curling to Halfway Point and from Benoit's Cove to Frenchman's Cove, the late morning ride was just beautiful. James Cook, the famous British cartographer and explorer, was the first to survey and record the geography of the area. Throughout the summer of 1767, he surveyed most of the west coast of Newfoundland, including both sides of the Bay of Islands. We arrive in beautiful Lark Harbour and are most taken by the long-range mountains, which rise out of the water and reach nearly 2,000 feet above sea level. The most striking thing about the day, however, was the hazy skies on this hot summer day. We later learned it was due to the massive forest fires from across the straits in Quebec and Labrador that was the cause of the haze, which also explained the odd smell in the air. After a short ride break at Lark Harbour, it was time to once again return to Corner Brook to check into the hotel and to take a closer look at the area. It was there that I noticed Wanda's motorcycle chain was again sagging, and with no more adjustment possible, we now had to take it to a garage to have it looked at. Something like this can really affect your riding plans and can have you hanging around an area much longer than you anticipated as you wait for parts or repairs. We find the Honda dealership at 2 p.m. and although closing in just 2 hours and no appointment, the gentleman told us he would have someone take a look at it to see if there was anything that they could do. He returns a short time later to tell us that although the sprocket is worn, he could have a couple links taken out of the chain which will allow further adjustment. He said he will have someone do it right away and we could drop back for it at closing time. Wanda and I decide to explore Corner Brook on my motorcycle for a couple hours as we wait. While riding downtown, we ran into a friend and fellow motorcycle rider, Bert Thornhill from the Western Knights Motorcycle Club. We had a fine chat, but unfortunately we couldn't take him up on his offer to go partying tonight due to our family commitments in nearby Pasadena. But who knows? Some other time, on some other day, we may get to do just that. Back at the Honda dealership, we thank them profusely for helping us get back on the road in order to continue our province-wide tour of the Rock without any delays.
We return to the hotel and decide on a place to eat before heading to Pasadena for a late evening ride and a family visit. This brings an end to episode 4 and the southwest corner of the rock. There is no question that this tour seems to get better and better with each passing day. Tomorrow we begin our journey to the northern peninsula and thus the final episode of the Rock on 2.